So somebody didn't do the thing. You needed help moving and nobody offered to help. You needed a break and nobody said to take one. You needed one text back just to say, I see you, and it never came. And now it's an hour later or 3 days later, and you're still turning it over, deciding what it means and what you're going to say the next time all of it comes up.
Yeah, or maybe it's the other version. Like you said the same thing to somebody 3 different ways, 3 different days, 3 different times. And it's all been in a row, and somehow they still hadn't heard you.
Yeah, I mean, 2 different situations, same question underneath both of them, really.
And you know what? This is one of those where you and I land almost in the exact same place. Don't get me wrong, we get there from different directions, but we stand right next to each other on this one.
Yeah, we do, because almost everyone is carrying something around where they wanted another person to just notice without ever saying it out loud. And most of us never stop to even ask ourselves if we actually know what it is that is the problem.
What the thing is, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I agree. All right, so look, everybody, I'm Clint.
And I'm Bo, and this is The Nature of Everything, where we run life through coin, confirm it, own it, be intentional, and change the nature of everything.
And today, we're asking, why do you expect people to read your mind?
This is the nature of everything. Don't stay stuck.
Okay, so here's what's actually happened in your head. Before any of this got to another human being, you didn't ask yourself what you actually wanted. You waited, you watched, and when it didn't show up on its own, you decided that that told you something true about another person.
And you feel like it told you that they don't even care.
Or that you're just out there on your own.
It also told you in your mind, well, that if you have to ask for it, then it doesn't really even count.
Yeah, and look, none of that came from them. That came from you deciding a want that you never said out loud was supposed to somehow be obvious.
And that's really what this episode is about. It's not about getting better at reading people or getting them to actually finally read your mind. It's not about that. It is about getting honest with yourself first, though. Before any conversation, before any ask, there's a question that has nothing to do with the other person. What it does have to do with, though, is, do I actually know what I want in this situation?
Yeah, and a lot of people skip straight past that last part, and they go straight to being hurt that somebody didn't already answer that question for them.
Yeah, so it begs the question, why do we default to waiting instead of asking? Because if we really think about it, asking has a cost, and that's why. If I ask you directly and you say no, now I do have an idea of your immediate thoughts on this or what you're willing to commit to. But if I wait for this and I don't give you a direct ask, then that protects me from ever having to truly hear your response.
Yeah, and that feels somehow safer.
Yeah, I mean, it feels safer, but it ain't safer. So to that end, researchers that are studying indirect communication have found that people, they reach for these hints or they quietly pull away from, specifically, or the martyr sigh, just the,
That's such a good one.
that would, like, people utilize these things and they actually gravitate towards those. Because like pulling away, that actually helps them feel more comfortable in this situation because hinting at these things can't really be refused in the same way that if you directly ask someone. For instance, if I hint at something that I want from you or that, I'm seeking something from you, but I don't say it directly, I just kind of hint at it and you don't get what I'm hinting at. Well, I get to tell myself that maybe you just didn't notice or whatever. But we still hurt from that because, like we were talking about, you probably should have known. Right now, I assume that you should have known.
Shoulda.
But the protection of this is selfish if you want to really think about it. Because if I ask and you say no, well, then there's no narrative for me to build behind that. There's nothing for me to make up about this. I just get to be mad because you didn't already know it.
Yeah, and people trade that all the time. They don't realize that they're making a very specific decision when they're hinting. They think, oh, I'll just trade the hint for the true question. Assertiveness researchers go back decades and they find that all that stuff that you talked about the size and the silent treatment and all that crap, like it actually produces worse outcomes and more resentment than just a plain direct statement, hey, I want something. And the thing that feels risky is actually the thing that works.
Sure.
And the thing that feels safe is going to quietly wreck your relationship.
Because I mean, nothing gets the eye rolling and the distance creation. Nothing gets that better than than the silent treatment and damn sure the martyr sigh, right? Like
Love it.
yeah. Because the reality is, if you're not truly willing to give that direct ask, then the other person generally they don't know. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. They genuinely don't know what you're wanting or
They
what you're needing.
actually don't know.
They
You're
just don't
right.
know.
I mean, like you've built this whole case about them and, using evidence that they didn't even have access to.
Sure.
It's really not fair.
Absolutely. So Adam Grant writes about this from a different angle in his work. His work's on about giving and taking. And he says people who give generously and expect nothing in return often end up the most resentful over time. And it's not because like, giving is the problem, but because the unspoken expectations, they quietly like attach themselves to this spirit of giving in some way. And so the people end up telling themselves, in us too, like we tell ourselves, you're not keeping score. But guess what? Like, yeah, you kind of are. And that's what his research finds is that you are kind of keeping score. You just never told anybody, sort of the rules of the game that we're all playing by, but the rules are set in your mind.
Yeah, that's totally the trap. And look, I have said it. I have heard myself say these words. I'm not keeping score. I just know I'm running away with the game. I mean, that's great, Bo. Awesome.
Yeah, so you're not keeping score at all. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you think you're being generous or patient or whatever, but really, you're just running a secret, silent, sneaky test on somebody that they didn't agree to take. Somebody either passes it by accident or they fail it. And either way, they didn't know that they were taking the test.
Didn't even know the game was being played, right?
Mm-mm.
It seems to get worse from there too. Like when somebody does eventually fail that test, I mean, you don't usually go to them and take the time to name it and confirm it and be be mature about it. You go to, well, I mean, you might go to a third person, just bitch about it and be pissed off and that kind of stuff. Or you might just swell all up and get pissy and get quiet and just stew in it for a while. But I don't know, whatever generally happens, when it comes up again, it comes up sideways because it never got addressed. And whether it's the next day or that evening or 2 months from now, when that dynamic presents itself again, it comes out pretty brutal.
It's those dang dishes again. Still in the sink.
Stupid dishes. Like nobody ever does the dishes but me. Mm-hmm.
Only me.
Right. Yeah. And that's not true. Generally, it's not true. I mean, unless you're the one that always does the dishes and you've asked multiple times, yeah, they'd be pissed. But here's where not sitting and dwelling and not sitting and stewing, but here's where like sitting with this and processing does actually matter. Because there's a step that most people really do just blow right past on their way to being pissed off. And whatever the thing is that we've talked about, something happens, the dynamic is set and they don't do the thing or they did that same damn thing again, whatever it is. But now that is kind of landing on you. Now that is something that you're addressing.
Yeah. And look, the real first move before you say a word to anybody is just checking whether what you're feeling right now is actually about that. Or if maybe it's some old tired narrative, some baggage that's coming along with that.
Mm-hmm. And we all know it. Our first reaction usually isn't the true foundational reason we're pissed. What we're upset about at that moment is generally the surface presentation of whatever it is, and it shows up quickly and it's right there in your face and it just flashes.
Yeah, and if you don't slow down long enough to check that, you're going to end up making somebody pay for a feeling that started a long time before this particular instance ever even happened.
Yeah, so there's a real question that we need to consider, like underneath that obvious, sort of flash. Like, do you actually know what's bothering you, or is it even remotely possible, almost every time it's possible, that you're still working through what's actually got you upset? And you know what? If you're not sure at the time, that's cool. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Nobody's watching a clock on you to figure out what your emotions are immediately.
This is where it gets tricky because it's important to take that time because your brain, it's not going to sit there and quietly figure it out.
Mhm.
It's going to start rehearsing and it's going to start building out movie productions and conversations about stuff that hasn't happened and guessing what they're going to say and deciding what you're going to say and running the whole exchange back 5 different ways so that
Sure.
you feel like you know everything that's about to happen.
So, quick caveat, nobody's saying that this is the easy move that everybody's going to be making. We're talking to you and we're talking to us that says, hey, we're moving to a point in our life where we want to be actualized enough that we do take this time. And we're not looking at this going, well, it's the easy move and everybody's going to do it. No, it's probably the tougher move. And it's what we should be doing. Because when we talk about all this stuff going through this whole exchange, you know what? None of that's actually preparing for this. None of it's preparation. It feels like you're being productive by just chewing this and ruminating on it and being pissed. But it's really just your brain trying to control an outcome that you're never going to control in the first place.
Because you don't get to script somebody else's response. I mean, you
True.
can make something up, but I mean, there's no guarantee there. The only thing that you actually get to decide on is just what you're asking for.
Yeah, so you can take notice of the rehearsal and by all means let it run its course if you want it to. Having that in your mind is not necessarily hurting anything. It's not creating damage, but you got to take that time to bring yourself back to ask the question underneath of all of that. And that question still exists. Like, what is it that I want out of this? If you want to be pissed about the dishes, that's fine. But what is it that you want out of that situation?
Yeah, and it's not just to win an argument,
Well, I
and
want to win the argument. What are you talking about? I
I
want
know
to win
you
the
do.
argument.
All right, so you don't want a version of this that just falls apart either, because it usually doesn't even go that far.
That's true. And generally, when I'm trying to win the argument, it doesn't go very far at all. Because you just still need to know what is it that you want.
Yeah, and here's why checking in with yourself matters so much. Because if you skip it, you don't just show up with an unclear want. You show up all irritated with just this crap riding on your shoulders. And the other person is just getting hit with all of the tension that you're bringing to the conversation instead of just a simple ask.
Yeah, and it's unfair in its approach because they can't honestly respond to, your want if they have no idea what it is that you want and it's wrapped in a tone that they don't understand why it's coming at them and you don't understand why that tone's coming at you and all they know is that you're upset and all you know is that now your response has pissed them off and they're upset and nobody has any real idea what anybody needs from anybody, so everybody gets defensive or shuts down or one side gets defensive and the other side gets more aggressive and
It gets jacked up.
I mean, so and here's the deal. Everybody that's listening and everybody involved here knows exactly what we're talking about. You felt it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times what happens there is like instead of just having, asking a direct question, we hand them our feelings and we're asking them to like reverse engineer to figure out what is the problem from the feeling that we just, vomited all over you.
Which just so happens to not be anybody's job to be required to reverse engineer somebody else's feelings to get to no.
That's
But
silly.
yeah, absolutely. But look, here's the deal. This is where it gets pretty specific because most people think that the thing that they're upset about is the thing. You wanted somebody to go to this specific restaurant. You thought you were totally sold on that. The expectation was, hey, when you get off work today, how about we go meet up so and so and we hang out, we get some drinks and we do dinner at this specific place. That place is our place. Guess what? When it doesn't work out, traffic's messed up, the car didn't start, whatever happens, and you don't get to meet at the place. that's where we have to start figuring out, like, what is it that you actually wanted? Was it the place, like that particular food was the right thing, or was it that you wanted time with this person? This person wanted time with you, and they wanted that attention undivided. Like, what is it that you really want?
Or maybe it's a communication, like, you thought you wanted somebody to text you back about the other thing, but what you actually wanted was just proof that you're a priority. The
Mhm.
text is the ask, but being the priority, that's what you wanted. Two completely different things if you take that moment to understand yourself.
That's why this is important, because here's the deal. We all know how that feels when we're on the receiving end. We know how it feels when something didn't go right at work and we got off later than we expected, or the kid got sick, you couldn't do the thing. We know what it's like when we've somehow picked the wrong restaurant and they're pissed at us, and there was no way that we knew how to get to that because there was no previous information to get to that for them. And yet we expect them to do that at a moment's notice in reverse. It's not that we can't confirm that there are problems, whether it's dishes or forgetting birthdays or picking the correct restaurant, but there has to be confirmation about what the actual issue is.
You confirm it correctly. And those things, the dishes in the restaurant, that's almost never the actual thing.
Completely agree. I completely agree. Like, there's usually something underneath that, because I mean, we're talking about dishes and forgetting restaurants and in these relationships that matter, and these are things that you've grown into. And so we know, especially people that have been married for years and years, like, we know if you're pissed about the dishes, you've been with this person 20 years, dishes aren't the problem. There's something underneath that.
Yeah, and don't cut the process short.
That's
You
right.
you have to sit with it, and you have
Mhm.
to actually ask yourself, "What am I after here?" Before you ever say a word to the other person about it. And this is exactly where most people just burn through it. You're irritated, and you just all of a sudden you're accusing somebody, and then everything's just blowing up, and it's a big old mess. But they never actually sit down and figure out, like, what do I really want?
So let's look at this again. Now, to consider what we've talked about up to this point, we've discussed this idea that other people have surface stuff that ends up like they're not understanding their full want, and they haven't expressed that to you. And so you know how that feels. You know how that feels unfair and unwarranted when that expectation is made of you. And we've talked about the fact that that happens to us. We know how it feels, and we still do it to the people that we care about as well. But digging a little bit deeper into this, if this is going to be something that we want to truthfully tackle this, then this is where the work really starts. And because the first answer that your brain wants to give you, we've already said that's generally not the true one. That's that fast flash in the pan thought, right? The one that doesn't require you to go any further or admit anything further or to confirm anything about yourself.
It would be easy to just go by that book that says, like, how to communicate better at work or how to communicate better at home in some vague sense. But the work here is to actually figure out what you want. Like, what's underneath the thing that you're mad at, or that you're venting about or whatever. It's like, what is that actual need that you have?
And there's research with this as well, and the research pretty clear in the fact that as things are more clear and more specific in a type of request, people are more likely to actually grant that. And so vague requests and vague hints and that kind of stuff, those earn vague responses, or they get no response at all.
Well, that totally tracks
Sure.
because, a lot of us, this is how we ask. We don't ask. we
That's
just
right.
drop a comment and we
Yeah.
hope that somebody picks it up.
Mhm.
And it's like, how are they supposed to know? Like, that's a joke in my family. Like, how
Mhm.
am I supposed to know?
Mhm.
But it's like, how are they supposed to know how to help if I honestly don't even know what kind of help I need? That vague is going to get back vague or nothing. You're right.
But well, and I'm gonna pick on my dad here for just a second. Like, I remember growing up, he'd look out the window at the yard and he'd say, "Man, yard sure is getting tall." And of course, I'm looking at him like, "Yeah, sure is. It's crazy how that grass grows, right?" And now I understand that what he's saying is, "Hey, son, get your ass out there and mow the grass." But that's not what I hear. I hear my dad going, man, grass sure is getting tall. I'm like, yeah, miracle of life. Look at that. And so for me, I'm just taking it at face value as a kiddo, right? I didn't have the wisdom to recognize that he's telling me to go mow the yard. But that's not a small oversight necessarily. If we do that in our adult lives and we apply that across the board, if our requests are even fuzzy and vague in our own heads as we deliver that, there's no version of the receiving person of them guessing this correctly. Sure would like to not have, so the thing's stressful. Your partner goes, yeah, I believe it. Like, how are they supposed to realize what you're saying is 6 weeks from now, I would like a 4-day vacation where you and I leave out of town, just the two of us, leave the kids at home to the spot that where we met. Like, they can't get there from here. These vague things, if you don't know how to present them and get to that in your own mind, then you will need them to read your mind in order to get there. Because
Look,
at this point, you hadn't read your own mind to figure out where you are.
Look, I've done this. I feel like I really got the master's degree in this before I figured out to not do this. Not naming names, not naming a week, just generally, I've stood in that room and I just expect everybody to know what I need.
Sure.
I've said it in my own therapy sessions. Like, why can't people just do what I want them to do? I mean, it's so simple, right? It's ridiculous.
And look, again, we've all done it. And it's not some deep-seated character flaw or anything. I mean, it's just simply a shortcut. And we've talked about it plenty of times. Our brains love shortcuts, and waiting feels less like work than actually doing the work and confirming what you want, and then risking getting the answer that you may not like.
Except that it's not less work. It's more work.
It is.
It just moved to the back end. You just pushed the work off because it's not going to solve itself until you deal with it, until you name it, and until you get really honest about it.
Yeah. And so there's also a difference between wanting to be understood and then wanting to be obeyed. And I think
that's what your dad was going for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obey me.
Yeah.
Mow that grass.
And I would love to obey,
T.
because not obeying the pops was not that wasn't generally in your best interest, right? So
Right.
I wanted to obey, but if and when we blur those things together, and we all do it constantly, and look, I'm picking on him because I'll hear about this later. I'm fine with that, but we do it constantly, and wanting somebody to understand what you're carrying, that's completely reasonable. Completely reasonable. Expecting them to act on it, however, without you ever naming it or being open about it or talking about it or expressing it, well, that's completely and entirely something different.
Hey, real quick before we keep going, if you're already thinking about a specific thing that you never said out loud to somebody, that's exactly what the book is for. It's called Confirm It, Own It, Be Intentional, and Change the Nature of Everything in Your Life. It's really the guidebook on all that we talk about. It's not about this particular topic. Think of it more like vocabulary for words that you can use to work through anything going on in your life.
Absolutely. And look, you can grab it on thenatureofeverything.com. It's the same 4 things that we talk about all the time. Confirm it, own it, be intentional, and change the nature of everything. Except now, if you grab the book, you'll have the whole language for everything we're going to talk about, instead of some faint memory that podcast you may have heard at some point, maybe.
All right, so let's actually run this through Coin. We can talk about that guy who wants to go out to eat, or we can use the text back or whatever.
Okay, let's start with confirming it. Not, I want him to text me back. That's the surface. The real confirmation piece of this is naming what you actually want is to feel like a priority to the person you're communicating with. And you have to admit that's what's underneath this whole piece within this thread.
Yeah, and confirming it isn't just saying those words out loud once. It's actually believing what you're saying and believe that you're allowed to want that. Don't mutter it and move on or say it under your breath. You have to land on it and know that that's true for you, true about how you feel, or you're still going to be on that shaky ground, when you go to say it to them.
Absolutely. You do have to believe that, because if you don't, that's when we find ourselves shrugging our shoulders and putting our true wants and needs all the way in the back. And we say the terrible words that we all hate, which is, oh, it's fine. Or you start a whole diatribe of how they're the worst person ever because they didn't. And so being able to confirm that and honestly believe what you're feeling about that and knowing what that is, that's the bridge to the ownership piece of this. Like, you can't own anything that you haven't let yourself fully believe in yet. Like, if you've half confirmed, well, I mean, you don't get to own anything, because you only halfway believe that stuff. Then you're just going to get a little bit of what you want, and that's going to get you a little bit embarrassed, and it's going to get you a little bit hurt, and it's going to get you a little bit sideways and pissed, and that's going to get you a lot of not where you want to be.
Yeah. And when you take ownership of it, that means that you acknowledge that you want something. It's yours now. You're not going to apologize for it. You're not going to shrink down and make it easier on them. You're going to carry it to the table, but without the irritation. You're not going to bring in the last 3 times that you tried to hint at this and it didn't work. You're just going to bring the actual thing that you want said plainly.
And listen, you deserve to want whatever you want in the first place. And if nobody's ever told you, then let's say that out loud. You deserve to want what you want. Because a lot of people, they don't ever get this far. They don't even put enough stock in themselves to realize that you don't have to earn the right to want something. Wanting it, shit, that's reason enough. And that's good. Good for you to know that you want it.
Yeah, that hits home. I mean, like, you don't need to justify it. You don't have to defend it or prove it's reasonable that you're allowed to feel it. Like, that's not part of this debate.
That's right. Because realistically, once you own it, you don't just blurt it out and kind of hope for the best. It's not a gamble in that you really get to gap map this. You get to put the pieces in place so that you know where you're actually landing on your feelings right now, whatever it is, feeling unseen, or if you feel like you're not a priority, you're the afterthought, whatever it is, that is the catalyst for creating the other tension points. And so figure that out, where you want to be. What is it that you want? Like, you just confirmed that and you owned that. And this gap that we're looking at, this gap map that we want to consider, that's what tells you what you actually say and when, how, the manner, the tone. That gives you the plan for how and when to say it.
Yeah, that's the be intentional. You look at the gap and you choose your next move on purpose. Maybe that's a direct conversation tonight. Maybe that's waiting until you're just not so butthurt about it anymore. Either way, you're picking the move instead of just reacting to your own feeling, or better yet, asking somebody else to make sense and react to your feeling.
Yeah, and when I'm butthurt about something, as you mentioned it, what I realize is that considering this makes it's a lot less scary, because when I am twisted about whatever the thing is, most of the time I forget the fact that there are really just 3 answers. They may be dressed in all kinds of, different tones or different ways to say it, but there's pretty much 3 answers, which is yes, no, or maybe. Yeah, it can be dressed up as not right now, but those are really the 3 questions, are yes, no, or maybe. Or
Yeah.
the 3 answers. I'm sorry, I said questions, the 3 answers.
Yeah, there aren't 50 of them.
No. No.
You can want whatever you want. No limits on that, as long as 2 things are true. You don't hit, spit, curse, or throw something when you ask, and you're actually willing to hear whatever one of those 3 answers comes back. The yes, no, maybe.
Yeah, if it's maybe or not right now, then then you get to ask again. Like, you get to have the same honesty. You get to have the same intention. You have the same dynamics that makes this okay any other time. You get to ask it again. It's later. It's at a different time. You don't know what you're going to hear, but if it's a maybe, you get to ask again.
Yeah, and look, if it's a no, you get to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
That's allowed.
Yeah.
It's an answer to one specific ask. You have to remember, it's not a verdict on whether you're worth loving.
That's huge. And guess what? If it's a yes, then you actually get to know that it's real, because you asked cleanly, and you asked cleanly without there's no anger, you're not loading it with manipulation and none of that stuff. Like whatever they give you back isn't them managing your mood right now. You've asked honestly and they've given you an honest yes to the need or the want that you've put in place, knowing it and believing that it's you.
Man, that's someone that hits me the most. I
Sure.
mean, I don't want what's not freely given. I
Mhm.
just don't. And I would rather get an honest no, knowing that it could have been an honest yes than some, guilt laden,
Mhm.
well, I'm just sick of hearing about it. So I'm going to, like just cave in. Like that's terrible. But I
Right.
mean, all that negotiation, all that clear, plain language, the plain ask, like that's the whole trade here. You being honest, them being honest, whatever that looks like.
And the part that I really love about this is that as you do that over and over with the people in your life, it becomes that practice that works its way into things just like everything else we talk about. It's hard to notice happening. It's not an overnight overhaul, but slowly the way you show up with people honestly and the people in your life, like those things start to shift as well. And this is when the nature of things, starts to change and you get to experience that and enjoy it. Not because you made some magical move to fix the other person, because it's not about the other person. It's because you stopped handling them and you stopped handling wants and desires and your needs. You stopped handling that as a hint or a vague, sort of misty kind of thing in your brain. You've stopped doing that and you've started handing people what you actually believe and what you know to be true about your wants. And so you're not having to guess. And so they're not having to guess.
This is where it makes the biggest difference is because when you take that conversation, like, if a person cares about you, if you're in a relationship and it's not toxic or weird, and you were to go to them and say, like, I just really wanted to go to this restaurant, that is just ripe for an argument about a restaurant. But if you were to actually take this time and understand what the need is that you're bringing to the table, and you look across the table, honestly, at a person that you care about, and you say, you know what? I would really like to spend some time with you soon.
Sure.
Like, that's not going to be an argument. That's not going to be a fight. Prove me wrong. You're going to show up honest, and that's going to change how the whole conversation goes.
This doesn't change overnight. This takes
Yeah,
a
this is
substantial
not
level.
easy.
No, this takes a
This is hard.
substantial level of practice. This is not okay. So you heard this podcast, and next time somebody says something or doesn't say something and it pisses you off, now you've got all the answers and you come at this all zen and calm and cool, and you have all. No, that would be unreasonable to believe. But what this does do is give you the opportunity to recognize that this dynamic is so often in play, and it takes a level of practice and actualization to say, okay, look, and even hindsight, maybe this takes the next few times in hindsight to go, well, shit, I did it again. Like that pissed me off, but it wasn't all of that. So like,
Or from now on, if you hear yourself doing the martyr sigh, like you better immediately come right back to this podcast in your head and see that you did it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it again, this doesn't change overnight, but what it does give you the opportunity to do is recognize that this dynamic is so often in play that we have plenty of opportunities to practice this piece because we all deal with it. We all have it. We present it and we receive it so often that there is no doubt that you have opportunities to give this a run and run this through coin. All right, so look, before Friday turns into a Monday and all of this gets buried under the weekend and you don't get to apply it, we want you to consider 3 questions.
Yeah. The first question: what am I currently waiting for somebody else to just notice that I've never actually said to them?
Number 2, am I sitting in this right now because I'm getting clear and I'm really processing what I want out of this? Or am I sitting in this right now and I'm not addressing this because I'm avoiding the ask the whole time so I don't have to hear the answer?
Number 3, if I said the thing that I want plainly today, what's the actual worst answer I could get back? And could I survive it?
All of these questions, these are all that rehearsing piece that happens in your head, and if you don't tackle these, then you never understand the wants because you never get to admit what they are.
And you know what that comes down to? You're never going to get what you want.
You don't get what you want if you don't know what you want, and then you don't say what you want.
If you've been in the same argument for months, a different topic every time, but the same fight that's really living underneath it, it's usually not a communication problem. That's a confirmation problem. Like you haven't landed on what you're trying to ask for.
Yeah, and that's exactly what a coin session is built for. One conversation where we help you find the actual want underneath the recurring fight. So you know what you're really asking for before you ever ask it again. Learn more about coin sessions at thenatureofeverything.com.
If you got something out of this podcast, please give us a follow and a share. That helps us grow and it helps other folks who might be feeling stuck.
Before you go, just know it's time. Time to connect. Time to change the nature of everything. Find us at thenatureofeverything.com and don't stay stuck.